Welcome to another episode of Raising the Wild Ones podcast. I have with me someone very special, my wife.
Hello.
What's up? Yeah.
Let's start over. Okay. So I told Caleb that I thought it would be interesting to talk about some of the women in the Bible because as a Christian wife, we read lots of different stories and we read lots of devotionals, and they use some of these women as examples of what it means to be a godly wife and how we should be living our lives, but we never really look into the kind of the history of the women and where they came from and what their real purpose was. So I wanted to start with my favorite book of the Bible, which is the book of Ruth, and take a look at Ruth and who she was and what she did and how she changed history.
Yeah. An interesting fact about the book of Ruth, it is, I think, one of only two books that the main character is a female, I believe. Now, the book of Ruth and the book of Esther. And you have the book of Ruth, I think it was written, it says, roughly around 1040 BC. Long time ago. Now, so I guess we're going to get into a little bit about what the book of Ruth, like, we're going to try to get through the first chapter and also talk a little bit about the Moabites, correct?
Yes.
The Moabites is one of those things where we've talked a little bit about it on the podcast, I think. Some of the stories that are involved with the Moabites, but maybe not necessarily just the Moabites. So I think let's set it up where we're sharing a mic here, so we're also kind of like close, and we're like trying to read and move. And
It's fine.
so anyways, so in chapter 1, do you want to go over this, or do you want me to paraphrase it?
You
Do
can.
want to paraphrase it? So in chapter 1, basically there's a dude, his wife, and two sons who are in... they're from Bethlehem. There is a famine in the land, and they travel to the country of Moab. I'm assuming because it's better living there. So his name is Elimelech. His wife is Naomi. Okay, and then they have two sons, and I'm not going to try to... You want to try to pronounce those names?
No.
No? So Chilion, kind of sounds like chili, and Malon. So they go to Moab, and while they're in Moab, Elimelech, the husband, the dad, dies. And then also, so at that point it was just Naomi and her two sons. Naomi's two sons marry Moabite women. One of them was Oprah, or Orpah. Orpah. O-R-P-A-H.
Oh, Orpah.
Orpah and Ruth. So
Let's call her Oprah.
yeah, Oprah would be funny. But so Orpah and Ruth, and of course Ruth is who the main character of the story is here. So, and then basically this is, so far we've just gotten through verses 1 through 5. So they marry Orpah and Ruth, and then in verse 4 and verse 5, both Malo and Chili, I said those wrong, Chilion, died. So at this point, now it's just Naomi and two Moabite women who married her sons.
Yeah.
Am I good so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is a good time to talk about the Moabites. Who were the Moabites? So we have some Jewish people from Israel, or from Bethlehem and Judah, go to Moab, marry Moabite women, and now these women, all the men die. And now we're just left with a Jewish woman and two Moabite daughter-in-laws. So who are the Moabites?
Okay. So I did some deep diving, some Googling, some AI, some Bible, a lot more Bible than AI. And I kind of got on this, as that's what we call it, like rabbit hole.
Rabbit trails.
Rabbit trail of like who were the Moabites. So basically, you have to go way back to Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot. And in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed, Lot has these two daughters. And he and his wife and his two daughters escape, But the wife looks back and she turns to a pillar of salt. So Lot just has these 2 daughters. And they go in a cave and they're living in the caves. And one of his daughters tricks him into having a baby with her. And then the other one tricks him into having a baby with her. One of those babies is Moab. And so he is the father of the Moabites. And when I looked it up, it said Moab is Hebrew for from my father. So she named her son Moab, the son that she had with her father, and it meant from my father. And then the younger daughter had Ben-Ami, which he became the leader of the Ammonites. And that means son of my father's people. So these 2 girls have babies with their dad and then kind of name them after it. But basically, so Moab is already coming from, in my mind, like this sinful relationship is like where this tribe started. And they're mentioned a lot throughout the Bible. I read about them in...
Well, what I'm thinking of, like 7th grade history class where you're learning about like the Texas Revolution and the American Revolution and like the origins of our country. Yeah. Could you imagine setting in junior high in Moab and like, this is where our country came from?
Well, and so the Moabites appear a lot throughout the Bible. They're in Deuteronomy, they're in Judges, and basically God uses them as a way to punish the Israelites. Like when the Israelites are doing evil in the eyes of the Lord, he uses them to punish the Israelites. Like he gives the Moabites power over them. And one of my like favorite stories is in Judges, and it's Judges 3:12-30, and it's where the Moabites had this super fat king. His name was like Eglon, I don't know how to pronounce it, but he had this super fat king, and so it said he ruled over the Israelites for 18 years. Finally, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and this deliverer came forward. Ehud, I don't know how to say it.
Ehud? That's my guess. I don't
know. But
know.
Basically, he comes with this huge sword. He stabs this enormously fat king, and the sword just gets sucked into his body. And that's how the Israelites overcame the Moabites in that passage in Judges 3:12-30. But again, they're mentioned a lot throughout the Bible. But when I did a deep dive on like who are the Moabites, like what were they? They were not good people. They had a god that they worshipped, and his name, I'm not, Chemosh. But basically, he was a destroyer, is what I read, and he needed child sacrifices, according to some of the stuff that I read. Like, there's even some mention of it in the Bible, like when one of the kings is losing against Israel, he sacrifices his son to try to win the war. But so basically, they were just bad people. They were destroyers. They were clearly, God was using them against Israel. They were not there for good.
And here's an interesting thing. There was I'm going to say this wrong. The Misha Stella. I don't know exactly.
They call it the Moabite stone.
The Moabite stone, and this is like one of those big things. If you've ever watched like History Channel shows, where it's big stones with ancient writing on it, and it says that it had it dated back to the 9th century BC, and was found in present-day Jordan, and it says on it had an inscription describing the victories of King Misha of Moab over the kingdom of Israel and his construction of a temple for the Moabite god Chemosh. So these are like things that, like, there is a physical proof of the kingdom of Israel and the Moabites in battle.
Right. And so when I read some of the stuff about the Moabites, it wasn't even biblical history. It was like just history that has been found, like the Moabite stone. And basically the Moabites were not good people. They were not loving. They were not kind. They were not good people. So when in the book of Ruth, when you have that history and you see that Naomi is forced to go into Moab to try to survive, basically, because there's a famine. When her sons married these women, it was not something that they would have been proud of, that their son had married Moabite women. It's not something that would have been like celebrated, because they said, like, historically the Israelites and the Moabites did not get along. They weren't friendly. They didn't like each other. So then when you go back, we read those first 5 scriptures, but we're about to get into the part where Naomi's gonna want to return. And for Ruth, who had grown up in Moab, it would be a scary thing for her to go into Israel.
And so, yeah, returning to the story, Naomi says in chapter 1, verse 8, it says, "And Naomi said to her 2 daughter-in-laws, Go return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you may find rest, each in the house of her husband." So she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. So she basically is telling them, I'm going home. Thank you. Peace be with you. Stay here.
And it was like one of the few times, because they didn't have kids yet. Like, in that time, it was one of the few times where a woman would have the chance to go back to her family, that her husband had died. She could go back. She could have found a new husband. She could have remarried without shame associated with it, because her husband had died.
And so, she says, and then the daughters-in-law say to her in verse 10, "Surely we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there still sons in my womb that they may be your husbands?" Because, let's say, a husband, a brother marries a wife, that brother dies, then the wife goes to the next brother. But of course, there are no brothers. So, she keeps telling them, you need to stay. And then in verse 13, "Would you wait for them till they were grown?" So she's telling them, like, I don't think I'm going to, are you going to wait until I have more children and then wait till they're grown? Which is a weird thought, but for us now, but.
But I think she felt like helpless in that situation. She's like, there's nothing left here for you.
Yeah. And then Orpah basically kisses mother-in-law and is gone.
Orpah says peace out.
Orpah pieces out. And then Ruth, it says Ruth clung to her. And then Naomi again says something along the lines of, Orpah's leaving, return to her people and to her gods. And then Ruth says, this is one of your favorite, which I think it kicks up.
It says, so Ruth 1:16, like, I'm not going to read that first part, but like the most famous part is, where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. And I think, having known the history of the Moabites, think Ruth has spent her whole life worshiping these other gods, being taught these other gods, and she's choosing to cling to Ruth, and to cling to Naomi. Not only that, she's clinging to God. She's clinging to this God that they have exposed her to. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, where she's going against everything she's known for her whole life and choosing to cling to God and to Naomi.
And so I think we're going to end it in chapter 1, but essentially what happens at the end of chapter 1 is, let me grab it. They go back together. Naomi says, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." But they go back to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest, and that's where, if you're good with it, that's where we'll leave off, and we can pick up next time. In chapter 2, Ruth meets somebody called Boaz, which is a very important character. And the cool thing about this story, this story leads to somebody named David, and also eventually leads to somebody named Jesus, who, of course, we all know who that is. And so this story is a pivotal moment in history, because if not for what happens after this, we don't. Ruth and Boaz eventually lead to David, eventually lead to Jesus.
Yeah. And back here where she says, "Call me Mara," my Bible says that means bitter. So they're like, "Naomi, you're back. We've missed you." And she's like, "Don't call me Naomi. Call me bitter."
So this
Which I
old
think is
bitter, so this old bitter lady returns to Bethlehem with a Moabite woman.
And I think, imagine Ruth is going into this. She's returning, and she knows already that people are not going to like her. But she's choosing to follow God and to trust Him and be faithful to Him and faithful to Naomi.
And like we said, because of that faith, it leads to something amazing.
Yeah.
Good place to end it?
Yeah, I think so.
You got any closing thoughts while I try to figure out how to turn this off?
Nope.
Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you guys for listening to Raising the Wild Ones podcast. I know me and Caleb are just a couple of redneck theologians, right? Kind of came up with that term a little while ago, and it's just kind of making us laugh. But that's really just what we are, right? Every single one of us is a theologian. Sit there and just think about the Bible, and me and Caleb are rednecks, so that makes us redneck theologians. And so we just thank you guys for listening to us. And if you want to just give us a holler and let us know about topics you may want to listen to, or things you may want to say, or if you have an idea for a guest host, or if you yourself want to be a guest host, just drop us a line. Just let us know. Just give us a ring on the old telly. Actually, not really. We don't have a cell phone number, right? But we do have an email, and you can send us an email, right, at raisingwildonespodcast@gmail.com. There'll be a link for that podcast down in the description. And so just kind of click on that and just let us know what you guys want to hear from us. And we like to hear from you guys too. We like to know what you guys think of our podcast. And so also just tell your friends, share it on social media. Just let people know when you're sitting down having a cup of coffee with your hunting buddies or fishing buddies, just say, hey guys, listen to this podcast. It's these two rednecks, and they're kind of weird sometimes, but it's fine because they talk about some cool stuff. And so just let people know, and that's how the word gets out, and that's how it gets shared. So we just thank you guys so much for your support and for listening to us. And yeah, tune in next time for more from the Redneck Theologians.
Hey, Wild Ones. Do you love what you've been hearing? Our deep dives into theology, Bible stories, and the Word of God? If so, we need your help. For just $6 a month, which is less than a cup of coffee these days, you can join our Patreon community. It's a simple but powerful way to support our mission of sharing the gospel with as many people as possible. And when you join, you'll get some awesome perks like early access to episodes, detailed show notes, and even biblically accurate coloring pages you won't find anywhere else, trust me. Plus, we're giving 10% of everything we receive straight to missions, so your support goes even further. So click the link below in the show notes and join us on Patreon today. Let's keep raising the wild ones together.